Tasnim Zara. Thank you very much for being our guest today.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
You are a medical doctor. You have a Western education. You have a huge social media following. Why did you feel you needed to take part in this movement despite the obvious risks? I just want to remind our viewer at least 1,400 people lost their lives after the repression.
So, actually, during the uprising, I was in the UK and I took part as a diaspora member. So did thousands of diaspora members in the uprising. And why I decided to join politics is actually motivated by two factors. So the first is, of course, as a doctor, I'm able to only impact the patients that I see, but politics offers an opportunity to hopefully influence systemic changes that affects much larger segment of the population and brings about positive changes. So that's one. And the other motivating factor for me to join politics and to join National Citizen Party, the Students' Party, like you said, is to change our existing political culture away from nepotism, polarization, and corruption to a culture of transparency, accountability, and evidence-based policy. The July Uprising crystallized this vision and provided an extraordinary chance, and I believe once in a lifetime opportunity for us to shift our political culture to a culture where it truly serves the citizens of Bangladesh.
Well, as you mentioned, the political landscape since the independence back in 1971 has been dominated by two parties, the Awami League led by Sheikh Hasina and the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, the BNP, led by Khaleda Zia. Your party was just created 2 months ago. How do you imagine challenging those two heavyweights in the near future?
So I feel that the political landscape has already changed. It's almost like the youth have torn down the walls and injected fresh air into the room. The youth are have brought in fresh ideas, fresh thoughts, and for the first time in decades, for the first time in my lifetime, political parties are engaging in dialogues about reforms in our constitution, reforms in our electoral system, reforms in judiciary, in police, and public administration, in our anti-corruption efforts, thanks to the July Uprising, which was led by the youth, which was led by the students. And I think the political landscape has already changed, and the people of Bangladesh are watching. Eventually, they will judge who rose to this historic moment. Everyone has a responsibility, and who rose to the moment and who chose to stay back.
Right. Mohammed Yunus, who is leading the interim government, he said, I just want to stay and then leave the scene. He has launched several reform committees on 15 different areas. He's hoping to get a consensus on key reform. How realistic is this, given the deep divisions we just talked about?
So transition after any uprising is not linear, but what matters is whether the direction we're traveling to is the right direction. And as you said, there have been several reform commissions, and currently there is a consensus commission which is holding talks with different political parties to come to a consensus on a fundamental package of reforms and a meaningful package of reforms. We understand that this is a complex process, it's a messy process. We cannot expect all political leaders to, lock arms and come to find a common ground overnight. But we are hopeful that after this uprising, we are able to come to a consensus on meaningful reforms, on restructuring our state. So the uprising did not just happen for change in the face, just to change the faces in power. People stood, they marched, they protested, they risked their lives, not just for a reshuffle, but for a reset. They rose so that there's a fundamental transformation in the system and to reach a new political settlement. And that's the goal we remain committed to.
Right. However, there is only an interim government, and the big question is the election. It's not only the reforms. Mohammed Yunus said the election should be held between December of this year and June of next year. The leader of your party said by the end of the year it could be difficult, but the main opposition party has warned that it wants elections to be held by December. What is your position? Should elections be held as soon as possible, or should they be deferred as long as reforms are needed?
So the chief advisor has announced a potential timeline of December to June for next elections. We're primarily aligned with that. But like I said, the uprising did not happen just for transfer of power. There must be fundamental, significant reforms as the Consensus Commission is working to build a national charter for reforms that must happen. And there are challenges. So why we think that we need reforms is just take, for an example, the Election Commission. It's playing by the old framework while political parties are at the table trying to discuss which reforms would make sure that the Election Commission will be able to play a neutral role and ensure there is a free and fair election. So if the Election Commission is operating under the old framework while we are talking about reforms to the Election Commission, that is a contradiction that is too big to ignore. And there's, of course, the question of local administration. They must be able to play a neutral role to ensure a free and fair election. Again, so back when I say that the Election Commission is operating in the old framework, it's almost like we're trying to build a house with an old blueprint that we know doesn't work. So the last 3 elections, which happened under the old framework, it's widely known that those were not free or fair. So there are concerns. Honestly, I wouldn't say that we are not concerned that there are challenges, but these challenges we feel are not insurmountable. We feel we will be actively engaged to make sure these issues are addressed, and we remain hopeful.
Right. Should the Awami League participate in those elections, given all the repression and the call for accountability?
So our party position is quite clear on this. Since Awami League has been accused of such gross violations of human rights, of crimes against humanity, if a political party is accused of that, they should go through a trial. They should go through a process of justice before they're allowed to take part in a democratic process of elections. So while the trial must be complete before they're allowed to take part in elections, while there's some argument that actually if you do not, if Awami League does not get to participate in the elections, it would weaken democracy. But we say that it actually strengthens the democracy if a political party, which has been accused of killing thousands of civilians and people lost their eyes and limbs because of under their regime and under their instruction, that party should be held to account. That party should go through trial before they're allowed back to participate in the democratic.
The leader of your party, Nahid Islam, said there will be no place for pro-India or pro-Pakistan politics in Bangladesh. This sounds like Mission Impossible, doesn't it?
Well, we think that the priority should be Bangladesh, interests of Bangladesh first. So, of course, in foreign policy, we believe that we are open to engaging with everybody, but that should be based on mutual trust, respect, and cooperation.
Tasnim Zara, I want to thank you very much for being our guest, and I want to thank you for watching this edition.